today is being threatened from within by a spiritual virus with a strange name, the New Age movement. What is it? What are its characteristics? What are its dangers?
Hi everybody, my name's Bob Saunders and I'd like to talk to you today about Jesus Christ. And you'll notice that there's two words, Jesus and Christ. Two words, because it's important. So if I say anything that about the life and times of Jesus that's not actually written in the Bible, now, we need to start off by saying that, as I'm always saying in these videos, we are two people in one. We've got our physical body and we've got this Spirit of God attached to us. Called our higher self. And then we have all our personality and all the rest of it. And that Spirit of God, this higher self, animates the body. Makes it function. When that disassociates itself from our body, then we die. Okay? It's this Spirit of God that's the important bit, really.
That Marilyn Ferguson, the author of The Aquarian Conspiracy, was on the Oprah Winfrey Show on a show entitled The New Age Movement. Back in 1980, Marilyn Ferguson wrote the book Aquarian Conspiracy, and in that book, she said, basically, we have a great idea, a great heretical idea, God within, God in everything. She said, we're not going to be able to pull this off right away, but over time, if it's widely publicized, we will be able to have our way.
Really.
I mean, it was
our physical body is just here to help us relate to planet Earth. Okay. Now, I also want to say that before anything existed, before the universe existed, there was, however, one fundamental law called the law of mutual attraction. Without that law, there would be no universe. You wouldn't exist and I wouldn't exist. Nothing would exist. It's that law of law of mutual attraction that draws things together that makes it all. Law of mutual attraction has, over eons of time, gathered bits of dust and stuff together and formed the planets and so on.
And the conspiracy is to get this great heretical idea that God indwells his creation. God is in everyone and everything. Last week,
so, some 2,000 years ago, a decision was made to try and introduce somebody down here that had that Spirit of God, that higher self, very much developed, not more developed because we're all basically the same, but the access to it more open, so that this person could demonstrate by his life and the way that he did things that this positive force exists. Jesus was born. What happened was they asked for a volunteer. Somebody came forward. He came down through the heavenly spheres, as did we all, and he was born. Okay. Now, whether he was born a virgin birth and was much more open, and he had full access to the spiritual powers that are contained within that higher self. Now, the only thing I will say that will differ slightly from one of the things I'm going to say that will differ slightly from what's in the Bible, it says in the Bible that he was a carpenter, the son of a carpenter. I've been told that that's not quite true, because had he been born a working class person, he would have been cutting up bits of wood from dawn till dusk, and at the end of each evening falling into bed exhausted, and he wouldn't have had time and energy to go around teaching. And he was here to teach spirituality and to show us that he had and that we've got this Spirit of God attached to us. Now, so he was born into a fairly wealthy family. And then we get to that point in the Bible where he disappears. Now, apparently, he went off to the Himalayas, to Tibet, and he studied in at least one monastery there, because apparently there's an actual record that dates from that time where his name's written in the registry. not quite written as the Jesus that we know, but apparently it's there. And apparently he studied Buddhism and so on and so on. And he went around teaching Buddhism in the Himalayas for a while. Finally came back to the Middle East, and the Bible picks up the story there. Okay, what actually happened to him at the end, whether he was crucified or whether something else happened, is not important. Important is that Jesus lived and that he had what we call the Christ spirit attached to him, associated with him, which he called his Father, because this Christ spirit, this higher self, is part of God. It's actually total God. God doesn't divide. God can create multiples of itself. Well, it's a complicated subject, but Jesus recognized that he had the God Spirit within him, which he called his Father, and he tried to say to us, our Father is also in heaven. We are also attached to this God thing. We have the higher self attached to us, associated with us, and we have this association with God. And really, that's the thing I wanted to say. What Jesus was trying to say to us is that if we can live in peace and in love together, which we should do because we have... This is what Jesus' message was. He came down here with a physical body that we know as Jesus, and this Christ spirit, which we know of today as a higher self, and he went about teaching that you can access this higher self, and which you can do through meditation and so on. It's quite simple. I'm not saying that you can ever be quite like Jesus, and there's no point. You're not here to do what Jesus did. Jesus was trying to tell us that we all have this God spirit attached to us. And that's what we're here for, to spread love, to spread peace, to spread happiness, to spread joy, to spread harmony, and all pull together to reduce the powers of evil and make the powers of goodness come up and up and up. And to tell us, I believe, Jesus and the Christ Spirit, which we all have within us.
You know, people go, well, but Jesus is in there. Well, what a lot of people don't understand is that, I think it was on page 112, that Jesus of the shack said, God, who is the ground of all being, dwells in and around and through all things. And then if you look carefully at that book, when the word creation is brought up, it's a capital C. Those of us from the New Age know that when you see creation with a capital C, it means that God indwells his creation.
And that's very different from what the Bible teaches. God is not indwelling his creation, right?
Psalm 39:5. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity.
Right.
Or in John 2:24-25, Jesus said, you know, referring to Jesus, says that he did not commit himself to men because he knew what was in men. Now, why would that be said if God is in man? Why wouldn't he be emphasizing that? He was actually saying, watch out. You know, men amongst themselves can be very dangerous in the teachings. So God is not within each person. She had M. Scott Peck on her program back in the early 90s, and a lot of people don't realize that M. Scott Peck, although describing himself as a Christian, was really more of kind of like an emerging contemplative New Age Christian, because in his book he said God is within everybody, and he actually laid out a plan. He said, we're in crisis, and that's what the Aquarian conspiracy said. We're in crisis, and we need to have a new way of looking at things. We need a new world view. And what he basically said was that our salvation lies in community. He didn't say in Jesus Christ, but in community. And he said that under the duress of these times, we need to change some of our rules. Yes, and that includes the church. Simply this, that God is in every atom. And that's exactly...
Sounds like Star Wars pantheism, right?
May the force be with you. The force, you know, this force is God that penetrates his creation. You know, it comes in various ways, but you just hit one through one. He talks about past lives. He encourages the reader to get into meditation, to contact their spirit guides. Oz is on the cover. Oz has also brought forward transcendental meditation, which Oz says he does. Reiki, which is a very dangerous sort of body treatment that includes spirit guides, and the Reiki practitioners make it very clear that spirit guides are involved in that process. Maitreya, I wrote a book called False Christ Coming, and Maitreya was one of the first 4 chapters. Every teaching, Maitreya, Benjamin Krem was like Maitreya's John the Baptist. Yep. And in 1982, there was a full-page ad in newspapers all around the world saying, the Christ is here, and he is waiting to be called forth. Benjamin Krem was on Coast to Coast radio probably 4 or 5 times over the last decade saying the very same thing. He's saying Maitreya is still waiting to be called forth. A lot of people have just dismissed it as a bad joke. What I show in my book is that what Maitreya teaches is absolutely consistent with A Course in Miracles, with New Age leader Barbara Marx Hubbard, with Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God, and with everything that Oprah Winfrey, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Oz are teaching. It's all the same bottom line. And a lot of it's being brought in, I'm glad you brought that up with Oz, through health, through holistic health.